This is MFG Out Loud. Courageous conversations about sales and marketing for today's manufacturers. With your hosts, Ray Zaganto and Allison DeFore.
Hey, Trailblazers, Ray and Allison here with you for another, and I think this is our 16th episode of MFG Out Loud, and today is an extra special one. Not only because Allison's kind enough to let me take the lead, but I'm a little bit of a fanboy for our upcoming guest. We are thrilled to be joined by Mr. Chris Luecke, in my mind, a genuine 21st century manufacturing renaissance man, and here's why. In addition to his day job at Rockwell Automation as an account manager, now you've been there like 11 years, right?
Correct. Just hit the anniversary on June 1. It's an easy day to remember.
There you go. Here's the significance of that. He is on the front lines of what's going on with Industry 4.0, which is there's a lot of buzz and controversy around it from all segments and sectors of manufacturing, and I'm really excited to talk to somebody that's been there and doing that. And if that wasn't cool enough, Chris is also the founder and host of not one, but two podcasts that you can find through all your usual sources. The first one where I got acquainted with Chris was Manufacturing Happy Hour, which is a weekly video series that covers the latest in manufacturing and automation industry trends and technologies, all discussed over a couple of cold ones. Guests include industry leaders, product managers, manufacturing execs, startups. It really runs the gamut, and the conversations are awesome. So that one is really cool to check out. The other one that's just flat out fun is Pubcast Worldwide. I love this, an alcohol-fueled interview podcast where they get real with influencers, creatives, and celebrities in person over drinks at the best pubs and breweries on the planet. So there's a recurring theme here, but we don't have to dwell too much on that. Chris, welcome to MFG Out Loud. We are so thrilled to have you.
Ray, thank you for the flattering intro. I'm excited to be here. I have to say this is one of the coolest manufacturing podcasts that I've seen pop up this year. I love the enthusiasm and insights you both bring to this show, so it is an honor to be here.
Thanks. You're so kind for saying that. It's beyond a passion project for Allison and I. We've been living this industry and trying to help industry leaders for our whole careers, and we're no less passionate about it today than we were when we started a long time ago. But hey, what I really want to get into is, our focus is on having those bold conversations, courageous conversations, as we call them, and perhaps bring up and talk about the things that might be a little uncomfortable or might be things that are in manufacturing people in the back of their mind, but they needed to see the light of day and go through it. And what really stands out to me and what's attracted me to follow you on LinkedIn and your podcast is you're really in the business of change. Is really what we're talking about. Your day job, Rockwell Automation, I mean, you're dealing with the tools and technology that allow manufacturers to change for the better how they run their factories and ultimately how they compete. Now, on the surface, that sounds like an easy thing. You can go online and say, wow, these things will make me better. Therefore, I'll be better than my competition. I might actually make more money. I'll have more customers, and I'll grow. Why is it still so hard? I mean, I'm really curious because you see and talk to manufacturers at all ends of the spectrum. What's your read on this? This should be a no-brainer. Why is it difficult?
Yeah, well, I'll reflect on some of the things that I've learned from my own podcast, Manufacturing Happy Hour, recently, and just, we're talking about automation. We're talking about reducing scrap, being more productive. In the case of, let's say, an equipment manufacturer, a systems integrator that is working with an end user, they're trying to, sell more equipment. They're trying to make it the best and more marketable for the future of manufacturing. But I think where it becomes a challenge is technology is only one part of it. And what I've been hearing from my guests, whether we're talking about digital transformation, whether we're talking about cybersecurity, And this is what I'm seeing in my conversations with my customers as well. There are three big things at play, and that's, technology is kind of the third one. There's also process, which is extremely important, figuring out the right steps to take on, let's say, a digital transformation within your enterprise, for example. And then before all of that comes having the right people in place. So it's not just, I think that's the biggest thing that makes it not something that's black and white or not something that's cut and dried. This is what makes it a challenge, is that you need to make sure you have all of those pieces in alignment and you're able to work through it when you're planning the future of your manufacturing business.
I've seen it. I lived it. I agree that I've often heard people say, the technology is the easy part. Mm-hmm. And even the process mapping, people can wrap their brains around a bit. What about the people side? It always comes back to the people, whether it's in branding, marketing, communication, sales effectiveness. What are the things manufacturers should be looking at to do right on the people side, and what have you seen them get wrong on the people side?
Sure. Well, I'll start out with the positives, the things to look for in getting right. It's about having, in any case, whether I'm talking to an end user or an equipment manufacturers, I would typically work with for the most part. It's about having a cross-functional team that communicates. Let's say, I'll give you two examples. So if I were working with an end user, a plant that manufactures a widget, a car, some sort of food and beverage, it's about getting individuals within, let's say, information technology and security, and getting people in operations technology, and getting people within the engineering teams, whether that's a corporate engineering team or a plant engineering team, in the same room, having the right conversations. And with an equipment manufacturer, it's about getting sales and marketing, the people that are marketing that equipment, talking with the people that are engineering that, trying to shave off, if you can shave off a week in your programming time or your design time and get more machines out a year, that's huge. But it comes from understanding what your customers are looking for, understanding, how you can actually do it within the equipment itself. And then manufacturing, purchasing, operations, all those groups play into it as well. So communication is the biggest thing. And this isn't just a manufacturing thing. Like when I do, I volunteer with the Boy Scouts of America, and I also do any organization I've been on. Getting all the right people communicating is always the hardest part. So I think where we see it as a challenge, I'm not going to say it's something people get wrong in manufacturing today, but one of the biggest things we see is the skills gap. I just mentioned all these different roles that you need people in, and oftentimes it's hard to find the individuals that, I'll pick on the technical skills. Most of all, you need the specialists. You need the people that have that technical background, the engineers that want to get their hands dirty. Pre-COVID, it's always nice to imagine sitting in a cool, hip Silicon Valley office. We don't know what offices are going to look like in the future moving forward, but there was that natural attraction. I think getting those right individuals to fill those roles, there's no doubt there's a skills gap, and with baby boomers retiring, as you've talked about on your show before also, it's really, not only having that communication, but also having the right people in those roles to have those conversations.
Have the roles changed? I mean, you've been at it long enough to see, gosh, in 11 years, that's like a lifetime in technology. You can go through a couple of generations and iterations there. Have you seen the demands for the roles themselves change? Whether it's IT or the more focused on the operations side, or even plant management. What's the evolution look like for you there?
There has been an evolution, and I can talk to a couple things, even beyond the technology roles. I would say, as far as technology goes, I think the biggest thing is having OT personnel that are security minded. There are new skill sets that are required, and also I think when we talk about information technology and operations technology convergence, one of the biggest challenges, a lot of these operations technologies, controllers on the plant floor, systems on the plant floor, many of these things were never designed to communicate together. So you've had to find people that can become experts, we'll say it, experts around, creating this Internet of Things on the plant floor that get these technologies talking to one another, and then being able to extract information from that.
Yeah.
So that is something new that has definitely come in that we see every day. And then in terms of, I always think about this, and I know, you and Allison have it on your mind as well, just in terms of how we market as well. I think I've seen this change coming, but I think we're going to see it even more so as we've realized how we can work very effective remotely. Geographic sales forces, I think, are going to start slimming down as people start doing exactly what you guys are doing right now, and what I'm doing with Manufacturing Happy Hour, where we're creating podcasts and videos that ultimately touch customers, prospective clients, our audiences in advance. So that's a way to say that it's not only the technology roles that have been changing, but it's also how companies and individuals are reaching their audiences and their potential customers as well from a marketing standpoint. So yeah, that's just what I've seen in the past 11 years. And even in the next 1, 2, 3, 5, we're going to see that continue to change and evolve.
I think you bring up an interesting point, because I think it's on your LinkedIn profile. You talked about primarily what you do is build communities of people to get together. And I think that's, is you step back and squint at it and try and pick out the patterns. What we are seeing, and COVID forced us into it. Part of it is just, I think, human nature. We want to reach out and maintain connections, but it's one of those, hey, while I've got you, how do you how do you read the tea leaves on this thing, or what's your best practice here? I think that is an interesting phenomenon that's coming out. We're creating our own mini tribes, and they're diverse. We're no longer constrained to who we bump into at the Coke machine. Now it's like, wow, I can reach out to, you in the Bay Area, Allison in Southern California, or my friends in Europe. What are you guys doing about this, or what are you seeing in these areas? So I think that's, there's a lot to be mined here, I think so.
Yeah. Question: how important do you think it is, Chris, that manufacturers look outside of their niche, or their vertical to, and I think this goes with what we're talking about with these tribes and the way we communicate, and how important do you think that is, that they look outside of their own little bubble and really learn and maybe adapt and adopt what others have been doing that is successful?
I think it's extremely important, and I'll put a positive spin on this also. I think manufacturers are starting to see how important that is. One thing, I'll give an example of what I do is in keeping with the Manufacturing Happy Hour theme, I've been throwing virtual happy hours on a pretty much a weekly basis since shelter-in-place social distancing started. And I have attendees, sometimes from around the world, but mostly from across North America, spanning 3 time zones in different industries, different roles, coming together on a weekly basis to talk about what's impacting their business, where they're seeing opportunities, and exchanging best practices. And one of the reasons I did that was, well, first of all, we can't go to trade shows anymore. We can't do that in-person networking. So it is about giving people an opportunity to connect with people that could, be in, obviously be in their network, but maybe be potential clients in the future, introduce them to potential clients. There's that community element to it. And the other reason I think community is so important, and I've been banging this drum for a while, is we're talking about looking outside of other industries. And the unique thing I have going for me is that in addition to manufacturing, I play in the podcast industry as well. I've been doing that for 3 years, and I dabble in the craft beer industry as well as a result of my other podcast, Pubcast Worldwide. So I'm constantly borrowing best practices from those spots in terms of seeing how these other industries collaborate, and in many ways have an all ships rise with the tide mentality, which is, I think the competitive nature of manufacturing has maybe made that more challenging in the past. But I think people are starting to realize that, hey, if I can talk to these other people, understand what their challenges are, what their solutions to those challenges are, they're realizing they can accelerate their businesses faster. And oh, by the way, the other thing is, with any type of community you have, all of a sudden you have referrals that are singing your praises. Like we had a call yesterday where we had probably 14 people. It was actually a bring a friend call. I said, hey, let's have our core group get together. Everyone bring someone for someone else to meet, and let's just have a jam session about what we're doing, get some new introductions going. And the amount of people that were able to say, hey, I can help you with this book launch, or hey, I know someone in that industry, let me get you introduced. It was incredible. And that's, I see referrals play a much bigger role in other industries, and I'm hoping that becomes more the case for manufacturing, because from the perspective of a sales guy like myself, makes my job that much easier when someone else is selling on my behalf versus me trying to say, well, this is why my company's great. I'd always take someone saying that on my behalf any day. Right.
Yeah.
Word of mouth. It's priceless.
That's an awesome approach. You bring up an interesting thing about the concept of borrowing from other industries. Everything old is new again. The assembly line that Henry Ford optimized, they got the idea from the meat packaging industry. That's where it came from. They looked at that and said, damn, what if we use that when we build cars? And I think manufacturers are particularly good at that. We're kind of genetically predisposed to borrow concepts, as I bet if I tried that here, it might work out. The get-togethers that you're talking about, I think, are so powerful. You think about it, it's like that. LinkedIn is kind of that foundation where it's kind of where you do some speed dating to start with, and then just like the three of us, we've had a few more conversations. It's like, listen, you're my people, so we start, and then, well, odds are pretty good that somebody that would fit in. So as that grows a little bit, and I think that's such a powerful tool that is getting some legs now, that perhaps pre-COVID it would have been nice, or the early adopters like yourself would have been promoting. Now there's probably more people that are predisposed to join something like this, to seek you out and say, hey, I want to be with the cool kids, or I'd like to be part of this because I think I can contribute, or join our tribe, to talk about some things. So what a neat opportunity, in the face of something that's not cool. This is pretty good.
Well, and I know you help manufacturers harness smart manufacturing, and I wanted to ask you, I know this is all part of that, right? But do you feel like communication, thought leadership, of course, I'm going off kind of on the marketing angle of all of this, but do you feel like that's playing an equal or supporting role in this, being a smarter manufacturer?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand the question. You're saying, is this whole thought leadership angle, is it influencing people to take action, or is it part of being let's say, a smart manufacturer? Which is it? Is it kind of both of those?
I think I'm feeling like it's part of, but I would like to know what you think.
I think it's definitely part of it. Because I really look at it not just from a manufacturing standpoint, but from a business standpoint. These things all play into it. So yes, you could, let's say you're a systems integrator or an equipment manufacturer. You could have just made the best piece of new equipment that integrates right in with a factory floor based on some new technologies you've leveraged. But if you're not marketing that the right way, or if you're relying on your old forms of marketing, you're not going to have the same success with it as you might otherwise. So I 100% agree that smart manufacturing, and this is just my opinion, maybe someone else would say differently, but I think every aspect of the business is integral to that. And then as someone that has kind of become a de facto marketer in a lot of ways, I'm definitely going to be biased to say, yeah, marketing is absolutely a big part of that.
Yeah. Cool. I know.
Go ahead, Elson.
Let him jump in.
No. I was, as our conversation has progressed, I'm kind of having flashbacks. I don't know how many years when the maker movement first started to come up. When it was Jen, pick your alphabet letter. At the time was like, we're kind of frustrated with the current model in manufacturing. There's some new tools out there, additive, different stuff like that. Open source movement was really starting to roll. And it was like, well, we're gonna jump in and really apply this creativity. And there's still, and you talk to some really cool startup companies, they're still doing amazing things in that space. It sounds like some of the larger enterprise level organizations are starting to kind of cross that divide. They're starting to bridge over and sound a little bit like some of the maker stuff that's going on. It's like, hey, we need to collaborate. We need to communicate. It's, Agile is finding its way into big organizations, which is, a fancy consulting word for, hey, place smaller bets and more of them all at once and keep plowing through it. So I'm just curious on your take on that. Or do you see a similar movement or a similar pattern out there?
I do. I see it's interesting. I'll go a couple ways with this, but I think I see more. I think large organizations are adopting what I'd call entrepreneurship, where they're looking for ways to make some small innovations to what they do and have teams that are able to drive change within their organizations. I also think, companies, and I'd put Rockwell in this category, are creating environments where people aren't as afraid to be innovative and try new things. And ultimately, that thing's not going to change overnight. Any large enterprise, it takes a while for big change to go across the organization. But you start seeing these little things catch on, and they might build up a little bit, and you see 2 or 3 different people doing like a podcast or doing something that benefits the manufacturing side. And all of a sudden, you see it start to grow. And honestly, I think I'm going to provide it maybe a different spin than you expected of this. I think part of that started as a result of startups being so cool. Like it's a recruiting necessity in a lot of ways. Companies look at it, it's like, all right, if we're going to get the next generation of top talent, we need to create an environment where they feel like they can do cool things, for lack of a better word. And I think I give Elon Musk credit for being someone that helped make manufacturing cool, like putting the Tesla plant in Fremont, California, right in the heart of Silicon Valley, making cars the way that they've done in Detroit for decades. So it's funny, and that goes back to one of my other answers, where smart manufacturing is as much a business topic as it is just a manufacturing topic. You need to have that marketing that goes with it. You need to have recruiting that goes with all this to bring things in. I think that's where some of this speed and, let's say, creating cultures of innovation with large organizations has come from.
That's awesome. Real quick, I want to get your insights, because you talk to cool companies all the time. Give me your top 2 or 3 things that you see on the horizon coming from startups that you've talked to. What are some of the neatest things you think we're going to see more of in the coming years?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple examples, and these are directly from a couple of the interviews that I've done. One, there is a company, and I'm going to start this off by saying what these companies are doing, they're solving problems. That's why they're so cool. They're taking on the biggest problems in manufacturing head on. So I want to make sure that's clear first and foremost. Their technologies, their apps, their solutions are really neat. But what they're ultimately doing is finding innovative solutions to the biggest problems in manufacturing. So first one, we talked about it earlier, there's a skills gap in manufacturing. There is a company called Variable that I need to double check. They're continuing to grow. So they were regional at first, but they're basically the Uber for plant operations, where Variable is spelled Veryable, like a very good company is the way I've described it before. But they ultimately have an app that aligns operators with manufacturers or other type of jobs. But it's a great way where if a manufacturer has increased demand, they can find the talent they need the same way they'd find a car to pick them up and drive them across town. It's a little more complex than that, but it's the same general concept. On the flip side, it works out well for the operators because they get a ton of experience across different operations and applications. And the biggest thing with that is if the skills gap is, you could say it's the number one issue impacting manufacturing, this is a solution that takes that on head on.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And I know at first they were mostly in the Southeast. I'm pretty sure that I know they're only continuing to expand, but I look forward to seeing that group grow. They've got a great team over there and a killer solution. So that's one of the ones I've seen. The other, we'll get a little more industrial with this one, is a company called Steam Chain, based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Actually, a number of Rockwell alums went on to create this company. But they offer what is called a machine as a service solution, which is critical for a couple of reasons. The easiest way to think of, what is machine as a service? It's a lot like SaaS, but the easiest example is like office printers, where, you're not buying the office printers, you're leasing it from a company on a regular basis, and you're, paying for usage. And the way machine as a service works is companies no longer necessarily have to do a capital investment on a piece of equipment. They can work together with the equipment manufacturer that provides it to pay for it on a regular basis based on performance. And these companies, the more productive that equipment is, the better return for both the end user and the equipment manufacturer, which is cool for a couple of reasons. One, I don't want to say we've seen some recession-like situations coming up. So whenever that goes full-fledged, when CapEx budgets get slashed, this allows people to go at it from an OpEx budget standpoint. So there's a pragmatic standpoint to it. But the biggest thing, and this goes back to the collaboration topic, is this encourages ongoing collaboration between equipment manufacturers and the end users that ultimately have their piece of equipment, where it's a win-win if that machine is performing, better, if they're finding continuous ways of improvement for it. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest things for manufacturing moving forward. If you can get all parties focused on continuing to make the process better over time, that's going to be a huge win for everyone. It's the same type of collaboration we see in the beer industry and the podcasting industry. And it's a great tool for those synergies. So steamchain.io is the other technology I've been super excited about.
That's cool. That is awesome. That is awesome. Chris, we have had a blast having you with us today. Allison, do you have any final thoughts or questions for Chris before we wrap up?
So many, but I'll save them for another episode.
This was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for joining us. And we will make sure that in the show notes, we list everything, all the websites that you mentioned, so that people can check them out. Also, in the social posts for this episode, we will definitely steer people towards your podcast because they're both incredibly good. And
awesome.
People will get a lot out of them. So I just want to say to those of you listening, again, we always, we say this, but it's so true. We appreciate you and your support. And if you're not already, please subscribe to this podcast, and sharing is caring. So tell a colleague to tune in and get real already. And Ray, you want to take us out?
Yeah, we do. Chris, thanks again for joining us. What a blast. You have the coolest office in the Silicon Valley. We're so grateful that you joined us today. Remember, everybody, please keep manufacturing out loud. We need you. Thanks for hanging out with us. Take care, everybody.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to MFG Out Loud with Ray Zaganto and Allison DeFore. You can subscribe and find show notes at mfgoutloud.com.